Say it one more time. Say it.
Oh yeah! How sweet it is! The fruits of victory! Oh yeah!
What a team!
What a team!
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Your Honor.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And we're coming back with part 2 of the 804 high school football Megapod. If you were here for part 1, you already know that I'm joined by Zach Joachim of the Richmond Times-Dispatch and Danny Lewis of VirginiaPreps.com. If you missed part 1, go watch it or listen to it. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever you prefer. And if you only want to listen to part 2 and you don't care about part 1, I guess that's fine too. Welcome. We are breaking down the upcoming high school football season. We have gone through our blue chippers, kind of cream of the crop teams that are in the next tier but could potentially step up into that upper tier by season's end. We went through our sleepers, very fun segment, and we're going to open things up in part 2 with our surprise teams. Do you guys have anyone you feel strongly about that? So the only prerequisite we have for this segment is teams that missed the playoffs last year that you think could, either make the playoffs this year or, just generally turn things around and improve upon last year.
Well, I kind of melded my sleepers and my surprise teams together, but I will throw out one that I'm just going to keep an eye on just because I think there will be improvement, and that is Powhatan. George Bland is a heck of a coach, and I don't expect them to have a repeat of last year. I think last year was just, new coach coming in. The cupboard was kind of bare except for that sensational wide receiver, Ben Whitfer, and I just think they're probably going to be a much improved team this year.
Not out of the coverage area. It's a team on the periphery of the coverage area that I feel like we don't talk about a whole lot, and it's Goochland. Because I was fascinated with them when I was writing their capsule yesterday. So their head coach is Chase Phillips, and people in the area will remember that this has been a great program in years past, right? Goochland won state championships in 2006 and 2012 under Joe Fowler. They were a runner-up in 2011 and 2018. As recently as 2019 and 2021, they combined to go 18-3 in those seasons with 4 playoff wins under Alex Fruth. But then from the fall of 2021 through 2024, when they went 1-9, their win totals decreased each year. So this is a program that has been successful in recent memory, that is in a bit of a rut over the last few years. Now Phillips is in his second season. They went 3-8 last year, lost in the Region 3B first rounds. But Phillips is really excited about his backfield, led specifically by senior Jackson Miles, who he said has had a wonderful offseason. He's also got senior Justin Papailarz. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Popielarz. He rushed for more than 1,000 yards last year, and it looks like he's got them on an upward trajectory after a 3-8 season last year. I know you said prerequisite was that they didn't make the playoffs, so I'm cheating here because they did make the playoffs.
Cheating out of the gate.
All right, but they went 3-8. Okay, so I feel
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that constitutes like them taking a big step forward here.
Spiritually, you are doing the exercise correctly.
Thanks, man. And then senior linebackers Skylar Mann and Cole Browning are the leaders of that defense. Phillips really likes his linebacking core. And so I think there's reason for optimism after last year that Goochland can be on an upward trajectory, getting back to the really good place that program was in for a long time.
Yep. I'll backtrack a little bit here, but I'll comment on both teams. For Powhatan, I kind of spaced out, and then we moved on to Goochland. their guys seemed really confident in the defense they're bringing back this year. Did you get that vibe, Danny?
I did. And I think, I think Bland touched on it at Media Day. That, last year I think he was a little late in the hiring process and, didn't have a whole off season to really work with the team. And I think that's going to pay off this year. I really, really did.
That's something we forget about with sports. Like, you're watching sports and you kind of forget these coaches they're regular people too, and this is a job. And so if you take a new job and, it's kind of, things are off kilter coming out of the gate, that can kind of weigh on you and just throw things off. Football coaches are very routine oriented folks. They like to, famously like to, some guys like to wear the same thing every day because it's one less decision. You've heard that old thing. And so I can't imagine just going into a new job and, kind of being thrown off like that and also trying to, coach a whole football team. And then to Goochland, Zach, I must apologize to Goochland. This is the second year in a row they have not been able to attend Media Day, and I feel to blame. I for some reason I just can't get a hold of people there during the summer. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But next year, Goochland, you will get an invite from me. I promise.
They sent in a preview form, so and it's pretty extensive here. So shout out to Coach Phillips for that. We talked about this preliminarily, not making any promises, but we had 34 teams there this year. And it was done in 2 separate sessions, and that does feel like enough where it's like, we should just invite everyone at that point, because you're only excluding...
That was the goal. I tried to invite everyone. Whether I was dialing the wrong number or didn't have the correct email, I don't quite remember, but I did try, and I failed. But next year's the year, even if I have to drive down there myself.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah. You're there next year, 2027. Book it, baby.
My surprise team, I'm going emphasis on surprise. I am going Matoaka. They were 3-7 last season, and definitely a step back, but they've had recent success. So that the pedigree is still kind of there. They're in Chesterfield County, but they're kind of like their own thing within Chesterfield, And so I feel like there is still something there. And we saw what Billy Rudd was able to do at Meadowbrook. And this is, if you listen to him talk about this job, this is really where he wants to be and where he wants to stay. He's from Matoaka. What I was trying to get at just a second ago, he considers it to be, its own county within Chesterfield, and many people agree with that sentiment. I hate to repeat myself, but he's saying all the things I'm listening and looking for at the high school level from a coach when they want to turn a program around, instilling accountability and discipline. In other words, they're going to make sure they're not beating themselves, and they're going to make the other teams beat them on the field. And at the high school level, you can flip 2 or 3 wins just by doing that. And they got 3 wins last year. It wasn't like they were winless. If they flip 2 close games or 3 close games, they're a bona fide team. And so they do have a absolutely brutal schedule. I don't know if you guys are looking at this thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
I am. They could be 0-6 out the gate. Their first 6 games are brutal.
Yeah, home against Herm, home against Benedictine, at Louisa, I never say it right, so I just say Louisa. Home against Dinwiddie, at Petersburg, home for Thomas Dale. So if they can steal 1 game out of those first 6, they'll close the season with, some more winnable games. Colonial Heights, Prince George, Hopewell, Meadowbrook. And if they can steal 2 or 3, they'll be sitting pretty. Don't get me wrong, they'll need to steal those. But they are early in the season. Maybe someone comes out flat. I don't know. Weird things happen early in the season, right? The Raiders beat the Patriots in week 1. So I don't know what Louisa has. Dinwiddie's replacing a lot, but they will likely go 0-6, but they could be 1-5. But they close with winnable games down the stretch, and they could end up somewhere around 500 and fighting for a playoff spot. It comes down. I think what it comes down to is this: they need to get through that gauntlet and still kind of have a positive mindset to close the season, which is tough. Playing Benedictine is not going to be fun if we think the Cadets or if the Cadets end up being what we think they are. And so Coach Rudd's going to have to keep his guys focused and in the fight, and he's got to keep morale up if they're 1-5 after that stretch.
Yeah, and not just that. I believe in the preview he sent me, there's not a lot of depth, so facing such a tough schedule, you got to make sure you guys make it through that, because if you don't,
Sure.
then it's going to be that much harder when the schedule eases up, because now you're down a few guys. His first 2 years at Meadowbrook, I think they were like 3-7 both years, so it does take some time. I think I know the cupboard's a little bit bare. I know that he's got a quarterback to work with in Matoaka. So, to your point, Matt, if they can steal one, sure, they could probably be 4-6, maybe get to 5-5. But I have a lot of hesitancy. I'm not as confident as you. I love Coach Rudd, but I'm not as confident that this is the year. But I think their future is bright once he's able to get his culture established there.
Yeah, I don't want to act like I think they're gonna play for a region championship.
Like that.
Yeah, I don't think they're playing for a region championship here. But let me ask you guys this: do you think 3-7 is? Do you think it gets worse than 3-7?
No, because they should beat Colonial Heights, Prince George, and Meadowbrook. Although I don't know, Prince George maybe isn't a gimme. Hewlett is a great player, and Tom Hall is a great coach.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of operating under the assumption that 3-7 was is something they're going to improve upon, and so I'm not looking for 7-3, but 5-5 make the playoffs type deal.
Yeah, like 3 is their bottom, their floor, so they can only go up from here.
Yeah, last year was rough. So if they turn around and make the playoffs this year, I think that would be a surprise. But also, I think if they stay healthy, there is a path. You just got to squint.
Yeah, Louisa no Savion Hyder anymore. So, they're outside of our coverage area and, on the periphery. I know CBS covers them, and we don't. I don't know a whole lot about what they have, but I know that they lost their generational talent, who's now at Michigan. And so they shouldn't be as good, although Louisa is one of the toughest environments to go win a game at in the state, and Matoaka's got to go there. They're such a fascinating team to talk about. I've never felt more optimistic about a team that I think is going to start 0-6. They're so confusing from that perspective, right? Because I love Billy Rudd, and I love Fred Stutz, who was previously the head coach. I mean, it was just a few years ago. What was it, 2023, Danny, right, where they won a region title and they were playing in the state tournament?
Yes.
Caleb Williams, Bryce Yates, Dylan Newton-Short, they had some phenomenal players there, and Stutz was the head coach, and now Stutz is taking the AD job at Westridge. Am I remembering that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he laid a phenomenal foundation there. He was also the baseball coach where they had some really good athletes. And so it's really just last year. Even just in 2024, they were what? What was this? 9-2? And they made the playoffs, right? They won a playoff game in there. So, and then lost to Bird 17-14 in a close game. So it was just 2 years ago that this was a really good team. And we believe in Rudd. We love what he did at Meadowbrook. It's going to take time. I think is I'm very bullish on the future, like Danny said, but you lost Kamari Cherry to Armstrong. You lost Travion Mills to Dinwiddie. That's two of your best players who transferred out, right? I know that Rudd has good belief, and Stephen Ankiel, I think is the quarterback's name, who has an interesting skill set. He's big. He's 6'3", 221. So I'll be interested to see what he can do. I think he got hurt last year, right? But still got some time under center for them. So I'm with you, Danny. I like the shout, Matt, because I love Billy Rudd and I love, just kind of the institutional framework here that is going to enable Matoaka to be really good in years to come. But I just, in no world do I see them beating Hermitage, Benedictine, Dinwiddie, Thomas Dale, or Petersburg right now, right? And so the best case scenario is they can steal one at Louisa and start 1-5 for me. And that Prince George and Hopewell games are not gimmies. Like, their Hopewell certainly isn't. So I'm with you. I like the shout. Love Billy Rudd. But, God, that's such a tough opening schedule with so many new pieces for them.
It is tough. The Petersburg and Dale, I believe, were one-score games last year. Even in a down year. So, but yeah, like I said, you got to squint. But if you squint hard enough, you can make out a path.
Yeah, that's a good point. 22-17 against Petersburg, 14-6 against Dale, 26-20 against Hopewell. So that's 3 one-score games that all of a sudden you flip it. Last season looks very different for them.
But yeah, it'll come down to that gauntlet, getting through it healthy and with some kind of team morale. But yeah, I think we're beating a dead horse here. We'll be watching, but nevertheless, we'll be watching Matoaka closely, it seems. You guys got any more surprises?
Not for me.
Other teams to talk about, but we can save them for the upcoming segments.
Sounds good. This next segment, I still have questions. There's very little structure here. If you got any hang-ups on a team, this is your chance to sound off.
I got 2 for you.
Let's hear 'em.
One's been mentioned, and that's Dinwiddie. In
That's
Mills
one of
we
mine.
trust.
Yeah.
In Mills we trust, and his resume as a coach speaks for itself. But he does have an extremely young team, a deep team. Looking at their survey they sent back, it's a deep team, but it's lacking a lot of experience. They do have a little bit of a softer schedule to open with, the out-of-district slate. So that will help get those guys some much-needed experience. But I just, for me, the question is, they're young, sure. I'm not sure how good they can be. But that also could mean that they're 7-3. And, so it's not like the sky's falling in Dinwiddie. I don't even expect them to fall to 5-5. But it is eyebrow raising that they have so much youth coming through at this point in time. That's one. The other one would be, go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
To Dinwiddie, during media day, Billy Mills was, I think, if you listen to him, tempering our expectations, especially out of the gate, like you were saying. He was saying stuff like there's going to be some learning experiences for these young guys, especially, I think he said, especially on defense, where, some things might happen, but, they're going to be learning a new system. So, to me, that says, he's going to coach them hard, but, they have the way that they want to play. And, best way to learn it is kind of just trial by fire. And so, we might see some lopsided scores at the beginning of the year, but I have no doubts that they'll improve. I think the only question is, and I think we're saying the same thing, the only question is it going to be a Dinwiddie team that we're used to seeing come the end of the year?
Yeah. And I will say this, and I've made this statement to somebody just this morning. If they finish 8-2, 9-1, hell, even 10-0, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say hell here, but
Sure.
If they do that, it's one of Mills' best coaching jobs ever. And he gets a lot out. He gets a lot out of a little down there in Dinwiddie because it is a one-county school. So, again, the reputation precedes him. But if you can be 7-3, 8-2, that's a whale of a job considering where you're starting the season.
Then who's your second eyebrow raiser?
The second might surprise some people, but it is Bird. I love their defense. I still have questions about the offense, particularly the quarterback position. I just, it's nothing against Bryson Lewis, but I didn't see a whole lot last year in that passing game. And unless significant strides have been made in the offseason, I don't know that it gets better. And I don't know that they have somebody else they can go to. So that's my big question for Bird. I think they're full of potential. And I love Coach Gerard Johnson. He's done well everywhere he's been. But, Bird is Bird. They have expectations down there in Chester. And that offense just left a lot to be desired last season.
He's saying things to get people excited, no doubt. Saying they're going to open things up. Not the Bird offense we're used to seeing. Yeah. It's one thing to say you're going to open things up. It's another thing to open things up. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I would love to see it, but I want to see it.
Yeah.
Chris Whitehead.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah.
Chris Whitehead on the defensive line, Isaiah Whitehead on the offensive line, both LSU recruits, two of the best talents around. They're going to be good in the trenches. But I'm with you, Danny. The rub with them is it's exciting to hear we're going to open the offense up. We're going to spread it out a little more. We're going to throw the ball relative to the ground and pound, 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust, LC Bird that we've known for a long time. But given the personnel and the complexion of this team, it feels like that's what they should be. Like, it feels like that's the route to this being a successful team is to lean on that defense, to pound the rock, and to lean on the run game and limit mistakes and turnovers, right? It feels like that would be their route to winning. Now, the program with really high expectations, they were in a state semifinal a couple years ago, and they were 7-5 and won a playoff game last year, and that's seen as a disappointment because they have championship level aspirations, right? But yeah, that's the rub, right? Is you hear the rhetoric about we're going to open things up and throw the ball more, but you wonder if the personnel is there to do that and if that could backfire because that's not what the personnel for this group is set up to do.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've all been around the game a number of years now. Sometimes you have to coach, and I'm not trying to tell a coach what to do, so this might come back to bite me. But, you got to coach what you have, not coach to what you want it to be. You know what I'm saying? You got to fit the personnel you have. You can't make the personnel fit what you want to.
And it's hard to win, at the high school level, high-flying, spread, pretty offense a lot of the time, right? I've learned that over the years, too.
Preseason's not long enough.
No. And kids don't have big enough arms, to really, stretch the field in the passing game so much of the time. You have to have an elite quarterback in order to play that way at the high school level with experience. And that's so hard to find. And so much of the time, the successful teams, what do? They play ugly. They play great defense. They limit the turnovers. They limit the penalties. They lean on the run game, 3-4 yards in a cloud of dust, and they grind you out. And that is successful at the high school level. And so it's great to hear we want to spread things out. We want to throw the ball. We want to be West Coast, get up and down. That can be great when it works, but it's rare that it works.
And speaking of penalties, Zach, we would be remiss to say that Bird is known for penalties. So, if Coach Johnson can get that cleaned up, that makes it a little bit of an easier road to hoe because then you're not shooting yourself in the foot every time you turn around.
For sure. They've left a good few wins over the last few years on the table because they beat themselves.
And I think we're all pretty high on Coach Johnson. I think it's one thing to say we want to be high flying and spread things. I don't think he ever said high flying. I think he said open things up a little bit. But given that we think highly of him, it's not outside the realm of possibility that 3-4 games in, they take a look at what they do well and they say, okay, we are going to hunker down here and run the ball, or what, they're going to look at what's working for them and lean on that. Kind of like, obviously I don't think it's fair to compare NFL teams, but I'm going to do it anyway. The Eagles team that won the Super Bowl, Kellen Moore, everywhere he's been, kind of spread it out, run as many plays as possible, pass heavy. But that Eagles team was run the ball, play defense, and wear teams down. And after their bye week, they kind of had a come to Jesus moment where they're like, hey, we're going to run, we need to run the ball and play defense, and that's how we're going to win. And that's what they did.
That style of football is not sexy, and it wins football games at all levels.
And just looking at the personnel you have and what your team's identity is, because a lot of times what you envision the identity being, it turns out to be different. And it's important to not, you got to be able to see the forest through the trees, which, can be tough when you have goals that you want to hit early in the season and you're not getting there. And, sometimes instead of banging your head against the wall, you got to pull over and look at a map. Does that analogy work? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, it holds up.
Sure.
You want me to shoot with mine?
Let it rip.
St. Christopher's, I want to talk about a little bit, because I think they're going to be a really hard team to figure out this year. Obviously, you lost Darius Gray, who is a, Harry Dalton level transformational, generational talent to come through the area. He's already drawn really high praise. At South Carolina, was a two-way lineman who set a tone of excellence for this program for a long time. And they got that win at Huguenot early last year, right, which turned heads around the area, got them some respect, I think, among the area VHSL teams that has carried over into this season. And it was great for us, right, to have an early measuring stick. Don't get the VISA VHSL matchups a whole lot. And so everyone thought really highly of St. Chris throughout the year. They end up 7-4. They're a VISA semifinalist. But you lose Darius Gray. Lance Cleland is a great coach. They have a great culture there. But their schedule is strange. And that's part of the reason I'm bringing them up here. Because they don't play Benedictine. That's a whole thing. They'll play them in the playoffs if it comes to that matchup, but they do not schedule them in the regular season. We wrote about that this past year. So they open versus Christchurch Episcopal versus Episcopal Academy, at Bullis versus Norfolk Academy versus Episcopal versus St. Michael the Archangel at Woodbury Forest. None of them are local teams. So we're not going to cover them for the first 7 weeks of the season, right? Because we have to be at the all local games, and we can only get to so many. So they're going to be a huge unknown this season, because very few people around the area are going to see what they have until the last 2 weeks, when they're at Trinity October 24th and they host Collegiate November 6th. And so they're going to be a hard team to get a handle on this year when you lose a generational talent and then you don't play any local games for the first big portion of the season, right? Aiden White was a really good running back for them last year. I'm looking at their preview for him right now. JJ Tidwell is a big play receiver who had some great moments last year as well. But Chase Roberts is gone, so they're bringing in a new quarterback. It looks like it's going to be either sophomore Cole Dunham or junior Tony Smith. So there's some big question marks here. New quarterback, you lost your big talent, and a schedule that means they're not going to get much local exposure. And so they were 7-4 last year. It's Cleland's 13th year at the helm. He's a great coach. This is a strong program. They were a state semifinalist, but I don't know how to feel about them going into this year. And I think that feeling is going to persist throughout the whole season until the very end, when we finally get to see them against Trinity, October 24th.
Yeah, the quarterback position's a big one for me, and I don't, I'm not the leading authority on the private schools, but Chase Roberts was a talent, and that's going to be missed tremendously this coming season for them. And But that schedule you just described, I mean, I'm not overly optimistic for them.
I mean, there are some good teams. Like Woodbury Forest is a good program. St. Michael the Archangel played for a state title recently. But I don't know what those teams have this year because they're outside of the coverage area. So they could be 7-0, going into that Trinity game at the end of the year, and they might not be ranked because none of us really know what they have, and we're not going to get a chance to see them until then. So they're going to be an unknown commodity and a question mark throughout the season, I think, regardless of what the results look like in that schedule.
I have no notes on St. Chris. Yeah, to your point, losing Darius Gray creates many holes because he played such a pivotal part on both lines. Yeah, and any more teams for this segment, guys?
No, for me, Dinwiddie and Bird were the biggest question marks.
I got another one I could throw at you, and it's Glen Allen. Because I think it's easy with a new coach coming in and you lose your starting quarterback to wonder what they're going to look like this year, right? Ralphie Puccinelli's at Benedictine now, as we've talked about before. They went 5-5 last year, and they did get to the playoffs. Okay, 5-6, I think here, right? If I'm doing my math right, yeah. And lost to Highland Springs 28-9. Malik Sexton leaves, goes to Churchland. Jacob Hodges comes in from James River. I like Luke Perini. Shout out to the Glen Allen players, by the way, who did media day without Coach Hodges had some family obligations, which we totally understand. But that was a tough assignment for the players to go up on the podium without a coach, and they did wonderfully.
Handled themselves well.
They handled themselves great. Cooper McPherson is a great baseball player who I know from their state finalist, state runner-up baseball team. He's a great athlete. He's going to be key both ways. Jakeem Dandridge, a running back, and he was a defensive back for him last year too. Love him as an athlete. I think Jacob Hodges, in his years at James River, got the most out of the talent, that he had there, and is a good coach. And so quarterback with some experience who competed with Puccinelli last year, right? I think the Sexton said, we have a quarterback competition, and Perini looked good when he came in. He can really run the ball. So they've got some good athletes, but new coach, new quarterback, I don't know what they're going to look like this year. Certainly want to see it on the field, and I'm intrigued to see what Jacob Hodges, Glen Allen looks like. Prince George, Manchester, Patrick Henry, Thomas Dale, Hampton to open. They've got a fun game against Trinity late in the season. That's on October 30th. The back half is tough because they close with Hermitage, Trinity, Freeman. So can they get back to the playoffs? Can Hodges get them above 500? I think those will be the goals, but it's just another team with a ton of unknowns that it's tough to get a handle on going into the year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It feels like that Glen Allen over it was Sexton. Who was there? Perry Jones.
Perry Jones,
You know, they built that program. I'm not saying it's with the upper echelons like the Dales and the Veranas, but he took them to that next level. And now it's Hodges' time to sustain that and carry it. And seems like he's got some pieces to do that with. But yeah, I think I equate that to like Matoaka. Like, we might not see it this year. It might be coming in the years ahead.
And the high point was 2024, right? When
Yes.
they win, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-2 that year,
Yeah.
I think, under Sexton, and won a playoff game, and then gave Highland Springs everything they could handle in a 23-20 Springers win at Victor W. Kreider Stadium.
And that was a senior-laden team, with a ton of experience, a strong defense. So, yeah, that's where they want to get back to, and they can fully do it. Staples Mill Road, Hermitage, Glen Allen, it has talent over there in that area. It's just can they do it this year? We'll see, kind of thing.
And you started 5-2 last year, and your two losses were 14-8 to Dale and 25-22 to Manchester. So they could have well been 7-0, through 7 games of last year with Puccinelli humming at quarterback, and then he goes down in that Hermitage game. And then they lose to Herm 38-20, Trinity 27-14, the heartbreaker to Freeman in overtime, and then kind of, sputter in the playoffs in a tough assignment having to go to Highland Springs. So they started so well last year, and then Puccinelli goes down, they trail off in a tough schedule toward the end of the year. Sexton leaves, Hodges comes in, new coach, new quarterback. That's the big question, right, Danny? Can they maintain, is that momentum still there that was created by Jones and Sexton? Will we see a dip, or can they kind of rebound from how last season ended and continue the trajectory that they were previously on?
Well, and to your point about Luke Perini, that group on media today was impressive doing that on their own, and he spoke like a leader. He spoke like he was ready to take that baton and run with it. And I don't know if you recall, but his brother was also at Glen Allen a few years ago, Jake Perini. So they've got that Perini blood running through Glen Allen.
And Puccinelli was not the only big injury for them last year. They lost an assortment of their best players, and that's why the back half of the schedule looked like it did. If they stay healthy and the ball bounces a different way, we could have been talking about an 8-9 win team last year.
For sure.
Speaking of momentum, do you guys have any notes on either Clover Hill or Prince George, who are in year 2 of new coaching regime, and year 1 for both did not go well at all? Did either of them win a game?
Well, I hate to correct you, Matt, but it'll be year 3 for Tom Hall at Prince George.
For Tom. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, both guys Hutchings and Hall both had tough years last year. It'll be year 3 for Hall, year 2 for Hutchings. Either one of those guys you see getting some momentum going this year?
You've preempted me as our last segment because I love these two coaches. I'm sorry, Danny, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about Clover Hill, I love Hutchins too. He and I have a great rapport, great relationship. Unfortunately, they've got purged by a couple of other schools this year, or poached, I should say, not purged. But they got poached by a couple of other schools this year. They lost some pieces that would have helped them. Can they get... when you're 0-10, there's only one place to go, and that's up. So I do think they can at least sneak out one game this year. I'd love to see him sneak out a few more, maybe build some momentum for next season. But it's tough to build up a program when it's been down for a number of years.
Yeah, we don't have to go down the whole high school transfer portal rabbit hole here because that would derail us for a while. But that is tough to see. Like, this is a negative example of it, right? Where you can be a Matt Hutchins and you're trying to build something at Clover Hill, and you go 0-10, and 2 of your best players still get poached. Terrell Lewis is gone, Donovan Mayfield is gone, both to transfers. I don't know off the top of my head where they went, but that sucks. Like, I feel for Matt. Like, you're trying to build something at your alma mater, and you don't win a game, but you're trying to, preach culture to the kids and commitment on an everyday basis, and it's like, at the conference level, it makes me think of college basketball, where like you have a great season in the Sun Belt or the A10, and all of a sudden your couple best players are gone to the SEC and the Big Ten, and that makes it hard for coaches and for fans of those programs and for players to buy into the messaging from a coach. When the avenue is there of like, if you perform as an individual, you can just jump ship and take a step up competitively. But I was gonna. This is jumping ahead, but it's in terms of the coaches.
You can save it.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Matt Hutchings at Clover Hill.
Yeah. Let's just jump into the next segment then. As you know, we are unbiased, objective reporters who cover just the facts and give you the information to do with as you please. But we are human, and deep down we find ourselves rooting for a guy for one reason or another, and we're going to reveal who those guys are. And Zach has alluded to a couple, or at least one guy that he's developed an affinity for. Matt Hutchings down in Clover Hill, is that right?
Yes, who was the Region 5C Coach of the Year at Midlothian a few years ago, right, Danny? Like he did some great stuff with the Trojans, getting that program to a great place. Took a year away from coaching. I would, and I say this as kind of not a plea, but like a message to all coaches out there too. Like we appreciate so much communication, not just sending in stats, but updating us on the program, all that kind of stuff. Matt Hutchings is the gold standard in that regard. He's up there with some of the best in the area because he helps us a ton and makes our job easier. And we're inevitably going to have a soft spot for those coaches, right, who are helpful to the coverage, and who make our jobs easier and allow us to cover their program by giving us the information that we need. Matt is that, and it's just an underdog story, right? I think like you guys are going to talk about some other ones too in that regard, where you're trying to revitalize a program that has struggled for a while. Clover Hill is obviously that, and I would love to see Matt, have some success there and be able to build up the culture of that program again. Do you want me to move on to my other one, or should I let y'all shoot?
Keep going.
Okay, so Trinity Episcopal is I'm going to plant the flag here because I talked about them earlier and sounded kind of glass half empty, and that's not a knock on Trinity. That's just a testament to Benedictine. And how good the cadets should be this year, that it's tough to see anyone challenging them. But another thing that we, I think it's okay for us to root for is drama and competitive parity, right? Like I don't want Benedictine to just go undefeated and romp its way to another state title because that's not interesting. I want, a team to challenge them and to get under their skin a little bit. And that rivalry between Trinity and Benedictine in recent years has been so much fun. Those are some of my favorite games that I've covered when they were going back and forth. And our people at those programs, I imagine, will remember I made the old money and new money joke because Benedictine was the old money of the VASAA and Trinity were the new kids on the block. And very different styles. And that was so fun to follow. And I want Trinity to be there this year. And so that's why I'm saying them, because Sam Mickens is another one of those coaches who is the best, who we appreciate immensely because he helps out the coverage all the time. They've got some great athletes here. Landon Hicks from Manchester, we talked about. Josiah Walker, Khalid Rayner is a big-time recruit as a defensive back. His dad, Wally, is a really well-known figure around the area. That dude makes you want to run through a wall. His energy is infectious. Former NFL player. And then Marquez Bullock, who I believe was previously at Highland Springs. Trey Cherry, who they brought to Media Day, is a linebacker and a phenomenal athlete. Did I say Gibbs up front, who's a JMU recruit, who's, I believe, on the offensive and defensive lines? He's 6'3", 305. He's a legit, D1 level athlete. Like CJ Gray is a running back for them who's a junior now, who's really explosive. Oronde Beeman is a guard up front, 6'5", 325. And if you look at their line too, like this is a 6 foot plus 280 to 300 pounds all across the line, so they can bump around with big teams down there. The question mark obviously is at quarterback, and can Deacon Scogan provide the level necessary to elevate Trinity to a point where they can compete with Benedictine? I want that to be the case because I want there to be a title race atop the BISAA, and I love Sam Mickens, and that rivalry is so much fun. So I'm hoping Trinity can do that this year.
Indeed, I volunteered to cover that game. I've never been to a game at Benedictine.
It's fun.
I believe it's on a Saturday in week 2, I want to say, Labor Day weekend.
I think it's actually a Friday at 3 p.m. on that day. So yeah, so like early in the afternoon game. Bobby Ross Stadium is one of the best in the state. It's an all-boys Catholic military school. And so you can imagine what the vibes are. You got Semper Fi flags flying over the student section, and they got suspenders on, and the freshmen have to do push-ups every time they score. I love games at Benedictine, especially against Trinity and St. Chris.
Looking forward to it. Someone I'm rooting for, another kind of underdog story, if you will, Dakota Reeves and John Marshall. John Marshall, kind of down the road from where I live in North Side in Richmond. Did not even, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, did not finish the season last year, or officially, I think forfeited their last 3 games due to I want to say suspensions stemming from ejections, which gave them too few players to compete, basically, and so they just didn't finish their season. And so Dakota Reeves comes over. He's a Charles Scott disciple from Huguenot, and I want to say, were they at Liberty Christian before that?
Life Christian.
Life Christian before that. And so he's seen, or I should say he's been there for, rejuvenations of programs, most recently Huguenot. So he's, trying to do it as the head guy at John Marshall. And he's a very inspiring guy if you get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, he was one at Media Day that, came away going, yeah, if I was playing football, if I was a teenager, I'd love to play for that guy. He seemed like he was really motivated to turn that program around.
Buying what he's selling.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and he seems to, it seems like he really gets it. He's not looking for, handouts anywhere, but he is tapped into the alumni and, boosters affiliated with that school. The community, he said, has responded really well, donated water, protein shakes to the program, and they got new helmets, which I think you, me, and Savannah talked about, Zach. Little things like getting new helmets can really put some pep in your step if you're a high school athlete.
I loved that story that you wrote off of that, man. Like, I think about Armstrong and Jeremy Pruitt. Like, they've had new uniforms over the past years. The run that they do through, I think it's Mosby Court, Gilpin Court, like areas around their school where it's important for them to, have exposure in the community and show everyone that this program is a safe place to be, that's going to galvanize this community. And it seems like Reeves is trying to do some of those same things at John Marshall, which we're all rooting for. And
yeah, we've seen a resurgence at the city schools, and no reason why John Marshall can't be next. A reader tip sent me down this rabbit hole a couple months ago, but John Marshall, you could forget, was a juggernaut in the 40s. They had, I think, back-to-back undefeated seasons and just an impenetrable defense.
Yeah, and in fact, they were even good as late as the 80s and 90s. So, early 90s, mind you. So, yeah, I think Lee Mary commented on it at 804 Media Day about how that North Side community feels about that program, and their pride in it's kind of, I wouldn't say diminished, but it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as bright as it once was, because the program's fallen on such hard times. So the history and the previous success. Yeah, and the
they
previous
want something
success,
to rally around.
The previous success shows you that it is achievable. It can be done.
they were outshone by the basketball program for years there, right? When Ty White was at John Marshall and they were winning state championships and nationally ranked and everything. And Ty White's at Petersburg now, and so I think maybe it was still a good basketball program at John Marshall last year, and I think will continue to be. But maybe that's part of the momentum behind wanting to revitalize the football program is the basketball program is not the national powerhouse that it was in recent years. And so people would like to see the football program kind of elevate at least to a point where they're competitive, and that can be a program that they rally around. And with Dakota Reeves, Matt, it's the Sean McVay effect a little bit, right? With what Charles Scott has done at Huguenot, everyone, I think it's a good strategy to try and kind of hire some of that stardust and somebody who saw how Charles Scott put together what he did at Huguenot and can take some of those same practices over to revitalizing another city program.
So
yeah, you look at their schedule. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, are you saying we're going to have a Charles Scott coaching tree before long?
I think maybe. I think that's where we're headed a little bit, right?
And you look at their
like-
schedule, it's not like a murderer's row here. It's conceivable that they could rattle off 3 or 4 wins. If they just play disciplined football and, don't get players ejected to the point to where you can't finish a season, and, make sure you can field the team. It's not, they didn't schedule many world beaters. Let's put it that way.
Are we turning to me now? I feel like I'm on the spot all of a sudden.
If you got someone you want to...
So I went down a different path with this. So I feel like I was on the same road with you, and then I took a detour.
That's fine.
I really went on a detour when you hear this, because I have 4 schools. Not just
All right,
one.
let's go.
So, first off, there's Armstrong, because they've been so close here lately. Last year they were within a score of getting to the state semifinals. It's not been but 2, 3, 4 years now, I think, when that whole fiasco up in Northern Virginia with Brentsville District and the region finals happened.
Pruitt coaching from the iPad.
Yeah.
Back home, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, so they're one of those programs that they've been close. I don't know if this team is as good as last year's. I might be proven wrong. But I'd love to see them get over that hump. I think it would be amazing for that school. It would, lend more credibility to Pruitt, who we all love Pruitt, but until you get to that certain level, just like with Charles Scott, until you get to that certain level, hey, he's a great coach, but, and I think if Armstrong could get over that hump, he loses the butt. This is terrible sounding, but he loses the butt. So, another one would be TJ in that same vein. I was there in 2019 when TJ won Region 2A. The scene is unlike any other. I might still have the video somewhere. I'll see if I do, and I can send it to you. When they won that region, it was like they had just won. It was like they had won the state championship. They partied. I stayed there for 30 minutes, and they were still just having a blast. I think these city schools, Armstrong, TJ, Huguenot, those guys making those strides is just immeasurable. Another selfish one, Thomas Dale. Kevin Tucker is such a great coach. It's unfortunate that to get to that next level, you got to go through a team like Oscar Smith every year. If they played in Region 5C, they'd probably be in multiple state championships. Or they might be, bowing out to Holland Springs instead of Oscar Smith. I don't know. But he is like one of those coaches that I look at as the best coach in their area not to win a state championship. And then on that same tact,
For what it's worth, Danny, I think you did this assignment the way I was hoping.
Okay. Good. I get a gold star.
Yeah.
And then there's Hermitage, because just like Coach Tucker's the best coach not to win a state championship in the area, Hermitage is like the best program in the region not to win a state championship yet. They've had talent for you're running into Holland Springs in Region 5C, so it's going to be tough year in and year out, but man, I would love, and with this talented group they have this year, with the Brooks brothers, with Page, with Woodson, they have a team that can make some noise. But can you get over Holland Springs? So, for selfish reasons, I want to see these programs take that step, get there, because I think it would be a wonderful story to write about.
I'll go quick fire and throw out some other ones too here, just to touch on some programs that we haven't talked about too. Rashad Harris tough year at Henrico last year, right? They've always got athletes. That's a program that had some really successful years and not so distant memory under Gerald Glasgow. And I like what I've heard from Harris so far of trying to build back up the Hen. The Chapel Stadium is so cool. Like, I like covering games there. Would love to see him get that program in a good place again. Brian Jennings at James River has previously been the coach at Huguenot and Clover Hill, right? And 2 different stints as an assistant at James River. And it sounds like he's really excited about the senior class that he has. So that's about as seamless of a coaching transition, I think, as you can have when you got a bunch of seniors and you elevate an assistant to head coach when Jacob Hodges leaves, that I think they could surprise some people and be solid this year. Interested to see what Quinn Tobias does at Meadowbrook, because I think we were all super excited about the momentum for that program last year under Billy Rudd, and we all would like to see it, not just be diminished because Rudd has left now. Tobias was an assistant under him. I hope he's able to maintain some of that momentum there. And then this one that I've thought about a few times over the last couple of weeks, Patrick Henry Ashland, that we really have not talked about at all, because we talked about all the other Hanover County programs a good deal. They've become something of an afterthought, and that's a far cry from where this program has been. Like, Damian Woody went there, and they produced some great players over the years. Danny, it feels to me like yesterday I was covering Jordan Allen, Camden Bird, Jaden Mines, and that Patrick Henry team going and winning a region title at Dinwiddie. And so I think Ken Wakefield is a good coach, and they've obviously had some tough seasons in recent years that are well below their standards. And so I want to see Ken Wakefield and Patrick Henry be resurgent, and see if they can get back on a trajectory toward what we know that program and coaching staff are capable of.
For sure, because like you say, they do have a rich history. They are the 1994, Division V, then, state champions. Lots of talent. A legendary coach was there, Ray Long. It's a shame that it has eroded a little bit, but I don't think it's in a place that it can't get back up from. It's going to take that right group of players like the guys you just mentioned. Because don't forget, Zach, you failed to say that they also played Verona in the 2021 region final. Verona had to beat them to get on the state semifinals. That was a close game too. If memory serves me, I think it was decided by less than a touchdown.
I'm pulling that up right now, but in those years, they were absolutely going blow for blow with the elite programs around the area.
Yes, for sure.
And Ken Wakefield has been there a while now, right? Okay, he took over in 2019. Okay, so and then there's some really good years in there that I'm looking at. I mean, that they won. Is there a region championship here? I think in 2019. And then another one in 2021, where they 16-14 at Verina. They lost that game in 2021. And 35-20 is the win at Dinwiddie that I was thinking of. So, and then after that, it was just kind of a slow downturn, and then 2-win 2023, 2-win 2024, 3-win 2025. So we know he's a good coach. We know they've got athletes in that area. Would like to see them get back to where they were at.
For sure.
Danny, I'm with you on Armstrong. I'm pretty bullish on them this year. They're kind of like, but I think I mentioned it earlier. I think Pruitt is one of those guys we can consider not only a good coach but a good program builder. He coaches his JV. He makes sure that his JV players are coached up well and ready to plug in when his seniors graduate. And that 2-headed monster they got at running back. I think if they can, obviously high schools, they got a short summer camp leading up to the season, which makes it hard to replace linemen. And so if they can get some kind of continuity up front, those 2 running backs, man, that's going to make it tough. They're going to be tough to play against. They're just going to wear teams out. If they can get a few stops on defense, they'll just kind of, I envision them being kind of like a good Michigan team under Harbaugh.
Ball is thunder, Pickett is lightning. You love how their skill sets complement one another. They've got good receivers and defensive backs that can cover a lot of ground. The question is obviously up front, where they lost a lot from last year. So it's, can the O-line and the defensive line enable them to reach their ceiling? The schedule is also quite light for them, right? I'm looking at it right now. You've got TJ and Hanover on here, and those are really your two tests. Aside from that, Richmond City, John Marshall, Goochland, King William, Henrico, Greensville County, Atlee, and Arcadia. So they should. It's impossible for me to see them winning less than 7 games. They probably should be 8-2, 9-1. Going into the playoffs pretty comfortably.
Yeah, just got to get past that hump in the region final.
And does that in turn, that would be my worry, is you're not tested a whole lot by your schedule. Does that hurt you come region playoff time, right? Double-edged sword there. Like, you can get good seeding because you're winning a bunch of games, but there's not really any big tests on here, for them to, that's going to be like if you play a Highland Springs, or something like that early on, if you're a Hopewell, right? You're not going to see a team that good throughout your whole, if you got to the state championship in Class 3. Like, that's going to be the best team that you see all year. And it's super useful for coaches when you have that kind of test when you're in a lower classification. And Armstrong didn't do that with the schedule, right? They don't have that big test and that measuring stick where they can say, we're not going to see a team who's better than this the rest of the year. So can that help them for seeding? Yes, but could it hurt them, come region championship time? Possibly.
Yeah, not forecasting too far ahead, but I do wonder if that changes in the next cycle when they go to do their schedule. Do they take a tack like TJ, who added Heritage, Lynchburg, and Norcom, a few of the other schools that they've added to the, they're playing Hermitage again, they're playing Freeman again, because they saw that by playing weaker opponents, it did hurt them.
That'll be an interesting case study because, TJ's got Hopewell on here too.
Yep.
I mean, Freeman, Deep Run, Godwin, all in higher classifications. So I'll be interested to see, Armstrong could be 9-1. TJ could be 5-5, 6-4 come playoff time. But with that tougher schedule that TJ has played, does that put them in a better situation to be prepared to win those playoff games?
Exactly.
Yeah, and they could very well be the most talented team in Class 2, but if you don't schedule those upper echelon teams, the playoff games are just a shock to your system, even if you're as talented as the guys across from you. Does that make sense? You're used to seeing guys you kind of steamroll, and then you got a competitive matchup, and it just kind of, you're not used to it, and then a game can get away from you in a quarter or a half.
And again, we'll have I'm sure TJ and Armstrong we'll have an eye on Poquoson throughout the season, wondering what they look like in 2A, because that's the team that either TJ or Armstrong are going to have to go through.
All right, guys, moving right along here, we are sadly at our last segment. I might shed a tear. Must-see games. I'm going to let you guys do the heavy lifting here. I'm looking. You guys can probably give me. We've gone over Trinity Benedictine. I'm looking forward to that one, week 2. I am looking forward to Armstrong Hanover. It's Armstrong's toughest game by far, as we just went over. Armstrong pretty weak schedule, and if Hanover is what we think they can be this year, that'll be a good measuring stick game for them. And if they can beat him for the second year in a row, that'll give them some confidence closing out the season, heading into the playoffs. But tell me, what games are you looking forward to?
Zach, you want to start it off? Because I got a whole list here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we could go down the schedule of the whole season.
Yeah.
The early ones that stand out. Yeah. Highland Springs at Hopewell on that Thursday is where I'll be. We'll be fascinated to see what Holloway looks like against an elite defense as a freshman. Talk about trial by fire. Your first start as a freshman, you get to see the Springers, which is a tall task. So if he looks good in that game, that'll really, foretell good things for the future. LC Bird at Midlow on that Friday. You've talked about where you want to be there, like we talked about with the Trojans. Lots of seniors, chance to be good this year.
Is that
what does
Friday
Bird look
or
like?
is that Thursday?
I see that one on Friday for our schedule here, but I can double check that.
Yeah, because I think Aiken said it was Thursday.
I really hope
so.
it's Friday. Yeah, I want it to be Friday because I want to be able to go to both Hopewell and that game. I see it on Max Preps as the 28th.
Okay.
And that's what it is on the VHSL master schedule too, but we'll double check that one.
Master schedule is known to be wrong.
Yes, it is. Certainly. As has Max Preps.
Go to Arbiter Live. That's where I've been getting mine from.
Week 2 is loaded, and I'm sure
Yes,
you were going to talk about. So you want to talk about some of those matchups, Danny?
Yeah. So the 4 big ones for me, and I know y'all mentioned Benedictine Trinity is week 2. But you also have Huguenot Highland Springs. I mean, that's where I'll be that night. Verona at Maury. How can you overlook that matchup? That's Class 4 champ versus Class 5 champ. You've got TJ Armstrong, as we were just talking about, rivalry game. Those kids love to beat each other. It means something to both programs. And then you've got the Battle of Chester, which is kind of like a undersell compared to some of these other matchups in week 2. So you're stretched. I mean, I would love to go cover all of these games, but I'm probably only going to be able to cover 2.
Looking at it, I had planned to go to Verina at Maury because that's probably the 2 best teams in the state. At least public schools in the state, with the St. James being in that conversation too. And so that'll have eyes on it, and I was planning to go there, but looking at this, I don't see how I can go there, because Savannah's going to be at Huguenot Highland Springs. We obviously have to be there. We got to be at Trinity Benedictine. Matt's planning to go there. And so I think I have to go to TJ Armstrong because we can't miss that one. So taking the 2 local teams, I think I'll probably have to go to Armstrong to cover that night instead of going down to Maury, however much I'd love to see the Blue Devils and Commodores lock horns in what's an upper echelon battle between 2 defending state champions. They got to spread them out more for us. And then,
yes.
But not to mention, like you said, Battle of Chester on that Thursday, September 3rd, and Glen Allen at Manchester, too, is a fun game. That's going to fly under the radar because of all the other good ones on that weekend. So that weekend's going to be, that feels like the true opening weekend. Even though most teams are going to play the 27th, 28th, there's so many good games on that second weekend that feels like when the season will really hit its full force stride.
Well, and week 3 is no slouch either, because you've got Verona going back to the 757 to play Oscar Smith, Class 4 champ versus Class 6 champ. You've got Highland Springs at Dinwiddie. You've got Trinity at Hermitage. I mean, public versus private. That debate will be debated for all time, but here you at least get to settle one score on the field. So,
and that's a great one competitively,
yes,
isn't it? I mean,
yes.
Where do we have? Do we have Trinity at 7, Hermitage at 8, off the top of my head in the rankings? Trinity at 7, Hermitage at 9. Yeah, so that I could see that game going either way. That's going to be really fun.
Yeah, for sure. And Highland Springs, Dinwiddie. I mean, I know we've got questions about Dinwiddie. Don't get me wrong, but you're talking about 2 coaches with over 200 wins each facing one another. You don't get that very often.
By the way, Freeman at Hanover could be a really good game competitively too. That we're not going to be at because of those other great ones that we've mentioned. But Atlee at Godwin is a good competitive game too. Midlow at Powhatan. You're right.
Yeah, that's a sneaky good rivalry game.
Mm-hmm. And we could keep going down the schedule for the rest of the season. I don't know, Matt, how many do you want us to mention here? Because we could just keep going week by week. But those are some of the big ones early on. I peeked ahead to week 3 too. So this is September 18th. Dale at Glen Allen is fun. Powhatan at Bird. Herm at Verina will probably be the game of the week for that one early on. TJ at Hopewell is a really fun game.
Yes, it is.
And that one is one of those, the 18th, which is a Friday. there's like no games on Thursday that week. Like, it's weird. Some weeks it's split pretty evenly between Friday and Thursday. That week is not. Nobody plays on Thursday. Everyone plays on Friday. So
And in the following week, you have Bird at Holland Springs in their first ever regular season matchup. So that's fun. You know, it's always been playoffs.
Gonzaga at Benedictine. That's an elite Gonzaga program. That game was phenomenal last year. Now they got to come down to the Abbey and play the Cadets there. There'll be some eyes throughout the region on that one.
Gonzaga will be looking for revenge. They kind of went on tilt last year, if you remember.
The game was wild.
Yeah, I believe they were up on Benedictine, and I want to say had a fake punt go sideways that led.
Was it a Sean Boyd scoop and score? Like at the very end?
It was something. It was like a series of mistakes that culminated in a fake punt. And it just seemed like they went on tilt. And but again, credit to Benedictine. That kind of plays into what their style. They will stay disciplined and they'll play their game and they'll let the opponent kind of beat themselves, and Benedictine won't beat themselves. And so that's kind of just how that played out.
Midlow at Huguenot too on that week 3. That'll be a really fun one in the Dominion District.
Looking later down the road, speaking of revenge, because Matt brought up revenge, Verona Grimsley. Verona, feels like they got unfinished business. Feels like there might have been some home cooking down there in Carolina last year. Now that team has to come to Verona, and I don't think the Blue Devils are going to make it easy on them either.
I don't know what Grimsley's quarterback situation is, but they're now without Faison Brandon, too, who's their like all-world projected, first-round NFL draft pick quarterback who's now at Tennessee in college. Yeah. So that Grimsley program kind of turning a page. And I think Verona could be favored in that game at home at James E. Dawkins Stadium. The Blue Devils are going to be so much fun early in the season, because again, they could be 3-3 and still, our top-ranked team. Credit to Marcus Lewis and that staff for scheduling the way that they did, because they clearly are not afraid of having to go on the road in the playoffs and play at a Dinwiddie, at a Huguenot, as a result of them scheduling what's got to be the toughest schedule in the state.
Yeah, it feels like Verona took a page out of the Holland Springs playbook when it comes to scheduling. Holland Springs was the first to start scheduling these gauntlets of a schedule, and now Verona's doing the same, and it's working. It's working.
Dinwiddie's at Hopewell, October 2nd. Looking at that slate, too, which is a really fun game. Did we mention Manchester at Midlow? Which is another good one in the Dominion District there on that second week. We could keep going down every weekend, but Danny, throughout holistically in the season, 2-3 games that are like the game of the year candidate. Yeah, obviously East End Showdown comes to mind. Highland Springs Verona is always one of the best.
Of course,
yeah.
Yes. And I tell you what, one sneaky one for the final week of the season, and I've got it circled. I might end up being there depending on how both team schedules go. But Matoaka and Meadowbrook. Billy Rudd facing his old team, his good friend Quinn Tobias. That could be fun.
Indeed. Well, guys, my AirPods, I don't know if you saw me trying to charge them while I wasn't speaking, but they're about to die. And that might be nature's way of telling us that we've gone on long enough, or we've gone the perfect length. Let's put it that way.
My girlfriend, once again, like last week when we did Ball and VA, is like, how long is this podcast? What are you doing?
Zach, I got you beat. My wife already put my face on a milk carton.
I will let you guys go. My wife has questions as well. We got a dog and a cone that needs supervision at all times because he keeps escaping his cone. That's a whole other thing. Check back next week. I'll let you know if Jack ripped out his stitches for the 3rd week in a row and had to go back to the vet. But until then, I hope you all had as much fun as we did. I was just talking to Danny when we were offline, taking a break. It's just an awesome, great conversation with the two of y'all. I feel ready for the season. I think MEGAPOD Megapod did its job, would you say?
Yeah, I look forward to the sequel.
All right. We'll
Danny,
check
we
back
appreciate
in.
you immensely for taking the time to sit and talk with us, my friend.
We'll bring Danny
Anytime.
back maybe mid-season and look at how awful our predictions are. Or maybe how right we were.
When Mechanicsville is 6-0 and well on their way to 10-0, I'm gonna be tooting my own horn there.
And Matoaka is 3-3.
We might have to do another friendly wager on Mechanicsville, Zach.
All right, I would need some decent odds at them going 10-0. I'm not doing that one straight up.
I think you should get my name tattooed on you.
Thanks for tuning in to the RTD Sports Podcast. Check back next week. Like I said, until then, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Danny, where can we find your stuff?
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at CRF4Dan and obviously VirginiaPreps.com. I'm going to be pushing out previews the rest of this week into the weekend because next week is it.
All right, I'll let you guys get to writing. I know Zach's got previews to write as well. You can see those at richmond.com and in the Sunday print edition if the schedule holds up. Schedules do change, but it is slated for Sunday at the moment, so you can pick that up at newsstands, or if you have a subscription, you can pick it up off your front porch. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone. Bye.